Doc, need one. One, Roger.
521.
You started me a card for a parking problem.
And for your 23.
Yes, that's for I'll get a 28 from one truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Here's a line truck, Boy Lincoln X-ray 985, should come back up and heading slowly.
So you had 2000 Patrick Spalding.
10-4. If you can just put a little note in the log that I'm going to be leaving a note on his vehicle advising him to remove it.
Fuck. Fuck.
Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Wendy Capewell from the UK. She is a psychotherapist and has a business called Wendy Capewell Trauma and Relationship Specialist. And she's also the author of a book that sounds like it'd be a really, really great read. From Surviving to Thriving in a Romantic Relationship, which for some people who have been in a domestic abuse situation is something that I think can seem completely foreign to someone who's either in a domestic abuse relationship or who's gotten out of a domestic abuse relationship, because a lot of times people who are in these relationships, they continue to repeat the cycle. They keep getting into abusive relationship after abusive relationship, and they don't understand what a good relationship is supposed to look like, how to behave in a good relationship, or how to even move forward past trauma to get into a good relationship, which I think is something that is really, really important for, people who are viewing this series to understand. So what I'm trying to do is, I'm calling this series Messages of Hope, and I'm trying to provide, some information for people who are either in these situations or who have gotten out of these situations, to let them understand that there is hope for a better way or a better life, for good relationships after these really bad situations. So could you tell us a little bit about, what it is that you do and, why you wrote the book?
Oh, so what it is I do. I trained as a psychotherapist, and I've been practicing for the last almost 16 years. And the weirdest thing is how I got into this was as a result of being in a very abusive, emotionally abusive relationship. And it was one of those, if I did what he wanted, he'd be happy, I thought, but he never was. And one of the things he said to me was, so I'm going to just go back a little bit. One of the ways I found that he stopped bullying me was if I kept talking about him, asking him, focusing on him. And he had a horrendous childhood. He was sexually, emotionally, physically abused in every way. It was a horrendous story. And by just talking to him, being interested in him, he stopped bullying me just for that little short time. And then one day he said, you're really good at listening to people. Have you ever thought about training to be a counselor? And I said, no, because I honestly, Crystal, I was not a people person. All my career, I had been in finance and admin, and I really didn't think I was good at talking to people. Anyway, he suggested it. I thought, yeah, why not? But as soon as I started training, that really got worse, because he didn't like me not being there. He didn't like me. He questioned the time I was away. I was late home, etc. Which he was doing when I was working anyway. But one of the things I learned so early on, I learned about the drama triangle. And I don't know if you know about it, Carpan's drama triangle. And if you don't know about it, then look it up, because that's the way I found out how to get out of the relationship. This relationship was going in round and round, from the rescuer, the persecutor, to the victim. And we were playing that. It's a psychological game played out of our awareness. And we kept playing that game. And I learned that the only way I could get out of the relationship was to step out of the game. It was very difficult, because he wasn't happy at all. He didn't like it that I had changed my behavior. But he left. And that's what I needed, because every time I tried to leave him, I felt I couldn't. There was a pull there in one way or another. And I think anybody who's been in that kind of relationship will recognize it. And so, yes, that started my healing journey. I started learning about myself. I started learning about why I was attracted to the wrong people. I started learning about childhood sexual abuse, because that was a huge part of what had gone wrong in our relationship as well. And yeah, then I went on to read the book that you mentioned, because I think that we don't get a book of how to do it. So we start off, and you start off with a romantic relationship, you know, the honeymoon period. I think that is, oh, so delicious. I mean, you can't take that away from anybody, can you? Because that is beautiful, but it doesn't last. And then we're into the real relationship. And then after that, all the other stumbling blocks that we come across in our relationships might be, first of all, we need to know ourselves. We need to know what our core beliefs and values are before we step into that relationship. And so that's where I start. And then, what are their core values and beliefs? Because I think they're the foundations of a relationship, not whether or not they make us laugh. I mean, that's okay, but 30 years on, you're not going to be laughing at the same jokes.
No.
So there are lots of other things that people get drawn into, their physique or, hobbies. Well, who's going to be skateboarding when they're 50? So, there's all of that. So I think it is very much about our core beliefs and values. And then all the stumbling blocks that we come across in that journey of a relationship. Moving in together, getting married, when you have a new addition to the family, serious illness, redundancy, all those things that can create problems. And even afterwards, how do you manage afterwards? So that's what the book is about. And there are stories in there. I bring stories of myself, case studies, and there are examples that you can work on as well. So yeah, that's...
Sounds like a really great resource for people who are trying to figure out how to make a good relationship work, because like you said, there's no user's manual, or you don't take a class excuse me, on how to have a good relationship, or even what a good relationship is supposed to look like. So I myself was in abusive relationships. I was in a number of abusive relationships, and when I met my husband, he was just like a really nice guy. And it was something that was so completely foreign to me that when we started seeing each other, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't deal with it. So I tried everything I could to destroy the relationship, because I didn't understand what, a good relationship was supposed to look like. And, I didn't realize, I kept thinking, what's the game here? What game are you playing? What are you trying to do? What are you getting at? And I couldn't figure out why he was so nice to me, and he wasn't asking anything of me, and he didn't talk to me poorly, and he didn't treat me poorly. And it was just completely foreign to me, because I didn't have a good example of how a good relationship should be, because my mother had been in a series of abusive relationships.
Right.
So, we learn from, our experiences. And it's just like you said with your ex, not only do we learn from our experiences, but hurt people hurt people. And so we just keep repeating the cycle of trauma over and over again. So for someone who's actually in an abusive relationship, what would you say to them about like how they should actually try to get out of the abusive relationship?
I think it's such a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think the statistics in the UK say it takes a woman about 7 attempts to get out of an abusive relationship. Because there's something called trauma bonding. So you're going to be bonded because of that. You don't deserve better, or you feel sorry for them, and all the threats that they make. And I think it is having a good network of people around you, or seeking help. You know, we have a national helpline here in the UK. I think it is, those are practical things, because I think we don't seek help from others because we're ashamed. I mean, I was ashamed. I can't own up to the fact that I'm an intelligent woman. How on earth did I get into that situation?
Yeah.
And I think, it's fine saying putting boundaries, but if we don't want to know what the boundaries are, and we haven't had good boundaries in the past, then we don't know what is right. And I just think if it's a really, really bad relationship, and you're in fear of your life, you have your bag packed with essentials in it, including your passport, and you leave it at a friend's house so that you can make that run if that's what you need to do. I think that's in extreme cases. But I think if you're in an abusive relationship, is putting those boundaries in. I just was not going to play his game, and I refused to play it. But that's hard because you need to know what the games are. You know, you can cry, you can get upset, you can get angry. You know, that's what was going on between us. You know, I was getting upset, he'd walk off, and then he'd come back and he'd try and console me, and then he'd be persecutory towards me, and that was the drama triangle going around. Then I'd rescue him because he threatened, I can't cope, and if you do this, I'm going to end my life. There's such a lot, and it is, I think, talking to trustworthy friends, I think, is a really good one. Refusing to play into the game, refusing, if it doesn't feel right, then the chances are it's not right.
Yeah.
It's such a big subject, Crystal. How do we get out of that relationship?
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, and so it's funny because, I've mentioned on some of the other videos that I've done so far that, I grew up in a violently abusive household.
Yeah. And
when I got old enough to actually get into relationships of my own, I swore that I would never get into a relationship, or if I was in a relationship with a man who hit me, I wouldn't stay. And I ended up in relationships with men who were emotionally abusive. And I didn't know that there was such a thing as emotional abuse. And I ended up, engaged to a man, and we were together for about 7 years, and he had completely isolated me and, was financially abusing me. And I didn't even realize that it was happening because he never laid a finger on me.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, because when I've worked with clients, if I know that a woman is actually going through, and it happens to Ben as well, let's be fair, but if I know that a woman is being abused, then I hand her a sheet and I say, look, and when she reads it, and it says if you're being put down, if you're being called names, if you're being isolated, if you're questioned about your whereabouts all the time, there are a million different things, but being put down. He would say things, and I started doubting my sanity.
Yeah.
It would be something really tiny. He would say, the cooker's broken because the seal had come away. I'd go, oh my gosh, I'm getting someone to fix it. What I found was that as soon as the oven cooled down, the seal went back. and it wasn't, there was nothing wrong with it, but you end up believing, I mean, it's so trivial, but actually you get a mountain of those and you really start thinking you're going mad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy because my husband and I, we've been together for 19 years now. And I still catch myself with some of the patterns that I would do with my ex-fiance, because like you said, they make you question reality. So like I'll say something to my husband and then I'll be like, oh my God, was that uncalled for? Did I say something wrong? Or am I being irrational? And I ask that all the time. Am I being irrational?
Yeah.
Because you really, and it's been almost 20 years that I've been out of this relationship. And I'm like, still, I think to myself, am I really being like crazy, or, am I being psycho, or, it's hard. It's really hard. And so one
Yeah.
of the things that, I know you teach is you teach people how to go from surviving to thriving, which I think is something that is so needed, because, when you're in these abusive relationships, you're just doing whatever you can to keep whoever happy, right? So I remember when I was younger, in our abusive household, when I was growing up, I became a neurotic people pleaser because, I never knew what like I was going to do to set someone off. Right. So like, was I too loud? Was it too quiet? Did I not ask enough questions? Did I ask too many questions? Did I not get good grades? So I'm constantly walking on eggshells and tiptoeing and like trying to, I'm like, okay, well, if I do everything right, maybe, I won't get hit today. Maybe I won't get yelled at, maybe I won't get in trouble. But no matter what I did, it just wasn't good enough, right? I mean, I did everything right plus some, and I still got abused. And that just made me a crazy neurotic adult.
Yeah.
And I'm really working on trying to, still heal that trauma. So I'm working on the people pleasing, and I'm working on being, I'm a typical, overachiever because of this. And so I'm working on trying to dial that back, but it's such a part of me that it's really, really difficult, because even though I have no one to prove anything to, I'm still trying to prove myself to no one. And it's really, really hard. So how can you go from being in survival mode to actually thrive and have a good life and good relationships and be happy?
I think it takes a while. I think it is about constantly working on ourselves. I remember, I moved house straight after. I changed jobs. I moved away, not because I thought he would do anything to me, but he had 3 rather unpleasant sons who I believe would. And the new job, I couldn't talk to a man. I really was scared of talking to a man. My confidence was rock bottom. I was fearful. I wouldn't open the blinds in my house. I was terrified of coming into the house when it was dark. It took me a long time to get over that, always looking over my shoulder. We were with 20 odd miles away, even not further. But it was the small steps. It is that small step of I think when we build on that, it is questioning almost, why do I feel a need to please that person? What is going on for me? Is this really about me, or is this about someone else? It's interesting. A lovely person I met on holiday last year, actually, and she started talking, and she said that she was doing this exercise, which was the rules we make for ourselves. And it's quite an interesting one, because when we do something, you sit and think about, what do I do? Why do I do that? And it can be as simple as, why do I need to make my bed every morning? What does it feel like if I leave my bed unmade? Where did that come from? Is it my rule? Do I feel better because it feels good for me? Or is it a rule I took up from a parent? Was it something that was implanted in me very young. And I think when we start asking that question of ourselves, why do I feel a need to, whatever it is, do what he wants? What does it feel like if I say no? So many people can't say no.
No, it's hard.
They can't. But you know, if you say no to somebody, someone else, you're saying yes to yourself. And there's a great exercise that I do. It's kind of, I talk about you never have to say no, but you can. You know, it's like, well, right now I can't do this. It doesn't, you know, I don't have the time, but I could do that. I don't feel very comfortable about doing this. I hear, you know, I think if we acknowledge the other person first, that lets us off the hook. You know, I realize this is really important to you, but right now I can't do that. But I could do that. Now, if you put those two things together, the rules you make yourself, and you start by saying, can I say no to that? I think sometimes those two can work quite well together. I'm making that rule, I can't say no. I can't say no because my friend needs me. Well, why does my friend need me? Why are her needs greater than mine?
Yeah.
And it may be. I mean, I make my bed. There are times I don't make my bed, but I'm comfortable with both now. And it could be so many different things. It can be, why do I make the rule that I have to get my husband's breakfast? Where does that rule come from? Why do I feel a need I have to do it? Why do I feel a need that I have to please somebody else before me? Because that's what you grew up with. You grew up in a violent home. I grew up in a dysfunctional home, and I was a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And so that goes around with us. But I learned, and it's taken me a long time to be myself. I was trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be, but it didn't get me anywhere.
No, and you're not happy.
No, because I didn't know what they want anyway. I can't read what they want of me. So why should I try being what I think they want me to be? But I carried that around for so many years. And then I took that leap of faith, and it's taken a while. You know, okay, well, I'm just going to be myself, because a third of people will like us, a third of people won't like us, and a third of people just don't give a damn each way. So why are we wasting our time on 2/3 of the world?
Right. Yeah, but it's funny because, you know, we're, particularly as women, and this is something that I deal with, you know, with a lot of my clients on a regular basis, is as women, we are trained from childhood that it is our responsibility to take care of everybody else and put ourselves last. And so I think it's going to need to start with people, you know, teaching children that, you know, self-care is important, that we need to, you know, take care of ourselves.
Absolutely. And I use the analogy of the safety instructions on an airplane.
Yeah. Put your own mask on first.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
and
you know,
you ever ask that question of your clients, and they sit there looking at you and say, I don't know. I've never thought about it. It's quite a useful one, because it's one that I guess a lot of people will understand anyway.
Yeah. It's just, I think it's hard for a lot of people because we hold ourselves to these ridiculous expectations, and other people don't care if we meet these expectations because they don't know about the expectations. So like, I try to be a perfect wife and a perfect, you know, friend and a perfect coworker and a perfect employee and a perfect employer. And, you know, so I have these internal expectations, and other people, they don't know. So if I forget to say good morning to every single person I see, you know, and then like I'm beating myself up because, oh, I forgot to say good morning to, you know, Joe as I was walking past him. Joe doesn't care. He doesn't know that my intention was to say good morning to him and that I didn't. And now I'm sitting in my office, like, you know, berating myself because I didn't say good morning or I didn't sound cheerful enough when I said it or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so we have a tendency sometimes to be our own worst enemies. But again, it's something that I think, you know, we're taught as women that, you know, it's our responsibility to be the perfect wife, to be the perfect mother, to be, you know, a good employee. So not only do we have to take care of our spouse and our children, but then we also have to be to work on time and we have to do a good job. And then we have to come home and clean the house and do the shopping and do the cooking and run the kids everywhere. And, you know, and then we're just running ourselves into the ground and we're miserable, but everybody else is content, you know, and it's really sad.
Oh yeah, and people like nothing more than the people pleaser
Yeah.
because they can load all their crap on us.
Yeah.
She
It is.
won't say no. She won't say no. And when you say you're running yourself into the ground for the simple reason that you're not going to say no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's been the hardest thing for me is learning to set boundaries, not only with other people but with myself. So it's funny because you mentioned the bed thing, making the bed, and growing up in my house, you didn't walk out of your bedroom unless your bed was made. And so every day I get up, if I don't make my bed, I'll kind of have a little bit of an anxiety attack thinking about what's going to happen to me if I walk out of my bedroom and my bed isn't made. But like, I'm an adult. I live in
That's
my
why,
own
yeah,
house.
that's why it's such a useful exercise, because when you sit with that anxiety, what does it feel like? That's where the work is. That's where the reward is, because you start thinking, well, where did this come from?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Like you said, no one's going to die. Now I can do it by saying I'm airing the mattress, but I can do it.
Yeah.
But well, that's a rule I make myself, but it's something that I feel, I like to have a nice home. So, I use that as an example because it's such a simple one, and one that, some people go, oh, whatever. But it could be, can you leave the dishes by the side of the sink?
Yeah.
Can you go out without your makeup on? It's those kind of things. What is it? Is it your own pride or your own well-being, or is it somebody else's?
Yeah. Yeah. So for people who are getting out of these traumatic relationships and they're, you know, feeling really bad about themselves, because when you're in these relationships, I mean, that's what they do to you. You're abusers. They wear you down and they beat you down so that you stay, because you don't feel like you deserve better or that you could do any better, or, you know, what's the point and all that stuff. So, you know, what words of advice do you have for people who are either thinking about leaving an abusive relationship or who have left an abusive relationship and just feel like they just don't know what to do or where to go?
I think with everything, it's baby steps. It is taking small steps and not trying to change overnight. None of us can. Working on one particular area, and I really, slowly. And I think I often tell clients, think of 3 things that you've achieved today, and write it down before you go to bed, because you'll take it into your sleep. So what are the 3 things that you did today? Whether it was you spoke to somebody, whether it was that um, it doesn't have to be a big thing. If you're frightened of going outside your front door, then, maybe that was the thing you did. Whether it's you just refused to play the game with your partner and you stood up for yourself in a kind way. You don't have to lose your temper. Just, I'm sorry, this doesn't feel right for me. If you did that, and not beat yourself up if you don't achieve it the next day. It's like you go on a diet and then you ruin it because you have that chocolate cake and you go, that's it, there's no point. I've failed, I'm never going to do it. It isn't. You just, with a diet, you just go back on it the next day. It's just a blip. And that's the same with us, I think. You know, if you're in an abusive relationship or whoever, if you're out of it, it is reminding yourself that you're good enough. And I think the good enough is enough. But just remind yourself of just those three things every day.
I think that's a really good thing to start with, because we all have a tendency to want to, just make like this complete change overnight. You want some, fairy godmother to come and just wave a magic wand and make everything all better. But, waving a magic wand isn't going to make everything all better. And honestly, you can be out of a relationship for years and still be triggered. There's
Exactly.
always going to be triggers that'll, bring you back or bring up memories, and you have to learn really good coping strategies. And I really like the idea of just doing, the three small things, because I think it's a really good way for you to move forward without being too stressed out about, going too fast, too far, or it being too much, because, a lot of change all at once can also be traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think if you try and jump the chasm, the chances are you're never going to do that again.
No.
If you take the small steps. And I think be compassionate and kind to yourself, because we beat ourselves up constantly. I got that wrong, I'm useless, all those negative voices come into your head. Get it out, just, push it aside. I need to be kind and compassionate to myself, because we all flourish with that kindness.
Yeah.
You think back at school, if you were reprimanded by a teacher, you felt about that tiny. If you got some praise, wow, you were just felt good. Mm-hmm. So why would we reprimand ourselves? Why would we tell ourselves we're stupid? Why would we tell ourselves, well, I got that wrong, I can't do anything right, I'm not worthy? Why? Because you just end up feeling that small.
Yeah. I think the worst one too, for those of us who have been in abusive relationships, is, we beat ourselves up for letting it happen.
Yeah.
And we have to understand that, yes, we did play a part in it, but, the other person made it really, really difficult for us to leave. They manipulated us, and, we can't be faulted for, trying to find love and acceptance, because that's what we're doing, right? We're trying to find love and acceptance. And these people that are abusers, they know exactly what we're looking for, and they know how to manipulate you. And then once they have you, then there's no stopping them, really. Honestly, the only way you can stop is to just get out. And so, we have a tendency to just really beat ourselves up for, I can't believe I was in a relationship. I can't believe I was there for that long. I can't believe I let him or her do that to me, and it's
a shame and embarrassment and guilt, isn't it? But
yeah.
I think, as you say, to be kind and compassionate, because they do find it, they'll find us at a weak time in our lives, or because we want to be loved. We just want to be loved. But do we want to be loved at any price?
Yeah.
That's the thing. But they do catch us at our weakest point.
Yeah.
So kind and compassionate.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today, Wendy. I loved everything you had to share. And for anybody that's watching, that's interested in anything that Wendy had to talk about, or her book, I have links for all of her social media. I will post in the video description and in the comments. And, I invite you to give her a like, give her a follow, check out her website, look at the work that she does, and check out her book, because I think I'm going to buy it. It looks like something that I think would be really, really beneficial for me to read, even though I'm in a good relationship. Like I said, I'm working with people who are struggling, and I think I might find some really good tips to be able to help people, in their relationships, which I think is, and it's not even just romantic relationships, just, everyday relationships, because every time you talk to a person, any person, you're having a relationship, right? And we need to learn how to interact in these, all these different ways that we come into contact with people. And I think learning how a relationship, is supposed to really flow, regardless of whether it's a romantic relationship or not, is truly beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. I think you're right. So right, Crystal. It is about every relationship we're in, and how we navigate it. But the first relationship starts with ourselves. I
Yes.
think it's understanding ourselves. I'm not going to say we have to love ourselves before we can be loved, because I believe we need to be in a relationship to understand what love is, but a good one. But I think we have to understand ourselves first and really find out who we are, what we are, how we function in the world. I think that's a work in progress too. I'm always learning more about myself. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I really
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for your
you.
time
I
today.
really enjoyed being on your show today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for joining us. And, again, I appreciate your time and, everything that you had to share. And I love the work that you do and really appreciate everything. So thank you so much.
Thank you.